All right, so today you're going to be starting on Act Two of the Crucible. As Act One ended, you have Hale. He starts to question Betty. Betty's not going to respond, so he starts to question Abigail. Abigail, the whole time, is just admitted to dancing, but then Paris chimes in and says, "Oh, I saw them in front of a kettle." So that's going to kind of think, "Oh, kettle equals witchcraft." Abigail decides, okay, this is not going my way anymore. So who else is she going to blame? She's going to blame Tituba. Tituba's a slave. Nobody's going to really listen to her. So it's an easy target for Abigail, who we see is not, she's not above lying to get what she wants or to try to get out of trouble. So they send for Tituba. Tituba comes in, and as soon as Tituba comes in, Abigail says, "She made me drink blood." Tituba says, "No, Abigail begged me to conjure spirits." Uh, Tituba again continues to defend herself. They say, "When did you conjure the devil?" She won't admit to it, but then everybody starts screaming at her. Paris says, "I'm going to whip you to death if you won't confess." Putnam is saying, "Hang her." So, what else is a slave going to do who has no rights really? She's going to try to save herself. So, she confesses to witchcraft in the hopes that she won't be beaten or really punished too severely. So we know really that it was a false confession, but again, it was honestly to save herself from being killed. So Tituba starts to name names. Goody and Sarah Osborne, or not Goody and Osborne, sorry, but Sarah Good and Goody Osborne. And then Abigail decides to jump in on the fun and she starts naming names. She says, "I want the light of God." She acts like she's turning away from the devil, but then she just starts to throw out names. So we see Abigail kind of moving in on an opportunity. We don't know why she's decided to do this quite yet, but we will start to see that through Act Two and especially in Act Three. And then Act One ends with kind of all the girls jumping in and they just start naming names of people in town. So now, as you're moving on to Act Two, some of the things I want you to focus on. So there's about an 8 day time jump between Act One and Act Two. So it's not been much time at all, really. So think about how quickly the trials kind of escalate, how they go from 0 to 60 in really no time at all. Act Two is going to open up with a lot of the relationship between Elizabeth and John Proctor. Obviously, you know that John Proctor was in a relationship with Abigail, and that's why Abigail was fired. So you kind of see that strain on their marriage for the beginning. Also, see how people kind of change and as their influence changes in this chapter. Focus on Mary Warren and Hale, especially. So those are kind of things to look at. Look at the relationship between John and Elizabeth, how people change throughout this act, and who seems to be gaining influence in town, who's losing influence, and focus on Mary Warren and Hale as well. Those would be good characters to think about as you're reading Act Two. All right, so I hope you enjoyed Act One, and now it's on to Act Two.